So we'll sidetrack for a bit and let's talk about multiplication. So recall the associative property of multiplication, which is basically this. 4 times 2 times 5 is basically the same thing as 5 times 4 times 2. So either way you multiply which one you want first, the answer will still be the same. So we will use this property now when we're dealing with variables. So let's say we have 4x times 5. Well, we can move to parentheses so that instead of 4 times x, we'll do 5 times 4 first. So 5 times 4 is equals to 20. So the thing about this part, you don't actually need to show this part, 5 times 4x. You can just skip from 4x times 5 to 20x. So let's do some examples. 8x times 2, well, you can simply just multiply 2 times 8, which is 16, and then the variable stays the same. The same thing with negative 9y times negative 6, well, we can just multiply 9 times negative 6, which is negative 54, and then we copy the variable. Now we have negative 2, and then we have a negative x. Well, remember that this is basically negative 2 Alright, this is basically negative 2 times negative 1, which is positive 2, and then we just copied x. So if you don't know that, well, I'll write it down. So there you go. So here's a more clarified way to do it. Now let's move on. So now that you're pretty good with associative property of multiplication, let's learn a new property, which is distributive property. So what does distributive property tell us? Well, let's look at an example. Example is 3 plus 4 times 2 is basically the same thing as 2 times 3. So let's solve this first. 3 plus 4 is equal to 7, and then we'll multiply 2 to that and we'll get 14. So this expression is basically 14. Well, distributive property tells us that if we have an expression inside a parentheses and we're multiplying that expression with a number, in this case 2, we can distribute the 2 to all the terms inside. So 2 will be distributed to the first term, 3, and we're going to multiply that, 2 times 3, and then we're going to distribute 2 to the last term, which is 4, and we're going to multiply that. So instead of 3 plus 4 times 2, we can just simply do 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. And then 2 times 3 is basically 6, 2 times 4 is basically 8, and then 8 plus 4 is equals to 14. 14 and 14, that means they're pretty much the same thing. The same process may be different, but the answer you get is the same answer. So here's some general formula. Again, A, B, C are variables. It can be any number you can think of. So why do we need distributive property? Why can't we just simply do this one? That way is simpler. Well, most of the time, yes, this is the preferred way, but most of the time we cannot do this way. So what we have to do is we have to do the distributive way. So here's an example of that. We have 4 plus x times 2. So what do we need to do? Well, we simply cannot we need to simplify this. Well, this simply cannot add 4 and x, right? Because obviously we don't know what x is. But what we can do is we can distribute 2 to both the first term and the second term. So 2 times 4 and then 2 times x. So 2 times 4 is the new first term, and then 2 times x, which will be our second new term. That makes sense. So 2 times 4 is equals to 8, and 2 times x, which can be just shortened to 2x. So now instead of 4 plus x times 2, we have a new expression, which is a simplified version, 8 plus 2x. So this is what we want. Now let's have a more complicated distributive property. We have 4a plus 1 all times everything by 3. Now we're going to distribute 3 to 4a and 1. So it's going to be 4a times 3, and then the other one will be 3 times 1. Again, so the first term we have 3 times 4a, well, we'll use associative property to get 12a, and then 3 times 1 is basically 3. Now let's move on to another example, a few more examples. We have 2a plus 3 times everything by negative 4. What we're going to do is we're going to distribute negative 4 to all the terms. So negative 2a times negative 4 plus, again, the operation inside the term, inside the parentheses, has to remain the same. So this is a plus. The operation between the first term and the second term will need to be the same thing, which is a plus. So negative 4 times 2a will be our first term, and then the second term will be negative 4 times 3. Now simply do some multiplication, associative property, negative 4 times 2, which will give you guys negative 8a, and negative 4 times 3 is basically negative 12. Again, the operation is plus and plus, and that's pretty much it. Or we can simplify this into this, negative 8a minus 12. Either answer will be correct in your test. So now let's move on to another one, 5x minus 8 times everything by negative 3. Again, we're going to distribute negative 3 to both terms. So negative 3 will be, 5x will be multiplied by negative 3, and then the operation between 5x and 8 has to be remaining the same. So it has to have a minus 3. That's minus here, and then we're going to multiply negative 3 with 8. So negative 3 times 8, which will be right here. Negative 3 times 8 is basically negative 24. So now we have negative 15x minus negative 24, or basically negative 15x plus 24. So now let's move on to, let's simplify more terms. What if we have two variables? Well, and the good thing is, if you're pretty good with this part, and if you're fluent, or how to say, I just say, if you're pretty good at doing this, you can actually skip this part. You don't need to show me this and do it in your head. You can mentally do this part. You don't need to show that in your papers. So here's an example. We have to have 2x minus 4y, everything multiplied by 5. Now, we're going to distribute 5 to 2x, and then if you multiply 5 and 2, you'll get 10, and the variable stays the same. Now 5 times 4y will be 20y. Again, it has to be both negatives. So sometimes people get confused in this part, because sometimes you're multiplying by negative. So if you're still not good at doing this, don't skip the middle part. Now let's move on to another part that's a bit harder. We have 4m minus 7n plus 8 multiplied everything by negative 2. We're going to distribute negative 2 to all the terms. Negative 2 times 4m, which will give you guys negative 8m. So here's some more. This one's a way I changed it a bit so you guys don't get confused. Negative 2 times 4m will give you guys negative 8m. Again, you copy the operation down, and then you're going to multiply negative 2 to 7n. Negative 2 times 7n will be negative 4n. Now let's move on to the last term. 8, negative 2 plus 8 is negative 16. So our new term is negative 8n minus negative 14n plus negative 16n. Or you can simplify this into negative 8n plus 14n minus 16. Either way is correct, but I just want to show you the steps so you guys don't get confused and jumping from one to another. Now let's move on to, how about what if we simply have a negative in front of the parentheses? What do we do? Well, when we have a negative in front of the parentheses, simply is that negative is not just minus, it's actually a negative 1. What we're doing is basically we're multiplying negative 1 to all the terms, and when we do that, the sign inside the parentheses changes, it flips. So positive becomes negative and negative becomes positive. So here you go. What we're going to do is simply flip all the terms inside the parentheses. Positive x becomes negative x, and positive y becomes negative y. It's pretty simple, right? Now, how about a few multiple terms on the parentheses? We pretty much do the same thing. We're going to flip all the signs inside this parentheses. 5x becomes negative 5x, 3y becomes negative 3y, and negative 2z becomes positive 2z. Now we're going to use the distributive property along with combining terms so we can simplify terms. So right now we have 2 plus 8x multiplied by 4 subtracted by 15. What do we do? Well, first thing first, you should do distribution if possible. So we're going to distribute 4 to 2 and 4 to 8x, and you're going to have 4 times 2, and then this one will be 4 times 8x. Negative minus 15 will stay the same. We're not distributing 4 to that since it's not inside the parentheses. Now you simply do the inside, all the grouping symbols. 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times 8x is 32x. And then minus 15 will simply just be minus 15. And then what we do is we combine like terms. Minus 15 is a like term with 32x. Nope, it's 8. So what do we do when we combine like terms? We simply add. So it's simply going to be 8 plus negative 15, which is negative 7. So here's some steps. So the first step we should do is, when we simplify terms, do distribution if possible, and then combine all the like terms. That's basically it. Now, instead of one step where you combine all the like terms, you simply do distribution beforehand. Now let's do some more complicated distribution, combining like terms. So now we have x minus 5 times everything by 2 and plus 2x plus 2 times 4. So again, we're going to distribute negative 2 to all the terms inside of the first parentheses. So negative 2, no, I didn't mean to do that. Negative 2 times x will give you guys negative 2x, and negative and negative 2 times 5 will give you guys negative 10. So again, the sign matters, sign doesn't change, and the sign doesn't change. As the operation stays the same, minus minus, negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. This is not a negative 5, this is a minus 5. Now that we're done with the first parentheses, our first distribution, let's do the second distribution. 4 times 2x plus 2. Now we're going to distribute 4 to 2x, 4 times 2x, which will be 8x, and then 4 times 2 is 8. And now in the second half, we can simply simplify this with addition rule, subtraction rule. What happens to subtraction rule? This becomes minus becomes plus, and the second half becomes the opposite. So what's the opposite of negative 10? Positive 10. So now our new operation is, our new expression is negative 2x plus 10 plus 8x plus 8. Now combine like terms. So we do term by term. What's the like term with negative 2x? It's 8x. So again, we're going to add negative 2 plus 8. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. And then we copy the term, the variable part, x. So our new term is 6x. And then is that all the like terms? No, we can do the like. So let's move on to the second term, which is 10. What's a what's a like term with 10? It's 8. So we're going to add 10 with 8. 10 plus 8 is 18. So our new expression is 6x plus 18. Okay, so here's the last few examples. We have 7z minus 2 minus 5z plus 6 subtracted from 1, subtracted from this. So what do we do? Well, first thing first, we will do distribution property by parts. So how do you know which distribution property you should do first? Well, again, do the parentheses with inside the parentheses, the innermost parentheses. So we have this 5z plus 6, right? And can we simply drop the parentheses? No, we can't. You know why? because of this operation of this minus. Again, we're just going to treat it as if this part is not there. So we're just going to deal with 5z plus 6 multiplied by negative 1. Again, remember when we have a minus in front of minus or negative in front of a parentheses, we'll treat it as if there's a negative 1 there. So what happens if we have a negative 1 in front of the parentheses? Oh, the sign flips. Yes. So if you don't know, if you still don't remember that rule, simply just add a negative 1 in the problem, and what you do is you're going to distribute the negative 1 to all the terms inside of this parentheses. So negative 1 times 5z will be negative 5z. Negative 1 plus 6, negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. Okay, so might be more confusing that way. So here you go. So again, we're going to distribute negative 1 to 5z, which will give you a negative. We're going to distribute negative 1 to 5z, so which will give you guys negative 5z. And then we're going to distribute negative 1 to 6, which will give you guys negative 6. And then you can do two things. So in this case, I kind of just distribute the negative again. Or in this part, you can also combine like terms. So right now, you can combine any like terms here if you want. Or you can distribute this negative to the inside of this parentheses, which is this process. So again, we're going to distribute this negative to all the terms inside of this parentheses, inside of the bracket parentheses. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative. Okay. So negative 1 times 5z, again, negative stays the same. So I kind of changed it a bit, so what I taught you guys is homogeneous, so there's no changes, so you guys don't get confused. So that's why I kind of changed it a bit from the other one, but you're going to get the same answer still. So again, first thing first, you're going to distribute negative 1 to 1, which will give you guys negative 1. Then now we're going to distribute negative 1 to 5z. Negative 1 times 5z is negative 5z. Again, this is a minus and this is the minus. So the sign, the operation doesn't change. There's still minus. And then now we're going to distribute negative 1 to negative 6. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. So we can simply put 6 and then the operation doesn't change in that part. Now let's move on to the latter half, 7z minus 2. Quick question, is there anything we're distributing to this part? No, we're not. But if you really want to be, technically there is, which is basically 1. What we're is we're distributing 1 to all the terms inside. But what is 1 times something? 1 times anything. What is 1 times anything? It basically gives you the same thing as the one you type. So 1 times 7z is basically 7z, and negative 1 times 2, 1 times 2 is basically 2. Operation doesn't change, negative minus minus. So essentially what you can do instead of distributing is you can simply drop the parentheses. So you can simply drop this parentheses and this parentheses and just simply drop it here. Why are we not able to drop the parentheses in this one? Why in this one we're able to drop, but this one we're not able to drop? Do anyone of you know? Yes. So if you answer that this part is because of this minus. This minus does not allow us to drop the parentheses without distributing the minus, or in this case the negative, because again we're simply thinking of this as this part when we're distributing. We're not thinking of the other part when we're distributing. So instead of minus, it becomes a negative. And this one, so is that more clear? This one didn't have any minus or negative in front, so we don't have to distribute the negative or the minus to all the terms inside. This one has a negative, a minus, that becomes negative, so we have to distribute that symbol to all the terms inside. This one has, this one doesn't. That's basically it. If you want to cut it down to the pieces, small bite, this one has minus or negative sign, this one doesn't have negative sign. So this one we distribute, we don't distribute on this one. We can simply drop the parentheses on this one, which we did. So now our new expression is 7z minus 2 minus 1 plus 5z plus 6. Again, this part we do subtraction rule. If you don't know how we went from this to this, we did subtraction rule. If you don't know what is subtraction rule, go back to topic 6, that's sign numbers. We talked about subtraction rule on that part. Now what we do is we combine. Like now that we have this, can we do any more distribution? Nope, we cannot do any more distribution. So what we finally do is combine all the like terms. In this case, 7z is a like term with 5z. So we're going to add the coefficient of 7 with coefficient of 5. And then copy the variable part, which is z. So our new term will be 12z. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add all the constant terms. -2 plus -1 plus 6, which is 3. So our new new expression is 12z plus 3. And last example for topic 7 is 8c we'll start this part. C plus 4 multiplied by 5 subtracted from 3c minus 8 times 4 subtracted from 8c. So that's basically how you say it. Now again, what we're going to do is we're going to do distributive property. Again, if you don't know which one, you do it part by part. In this case, there's no inner parentheses, so we basically start from left to right. So let's do our first parentheses. Again, when we're distributing, we want all the terms. When we're distributing, we want the parenthesis, and we want the term in the inside the parentheses, and we want the number to the right of the parentheses, including the sign that is to the left of it. So this is our parentheses, and this is the one that multiplies that parentheses, the number that multiplies the parentheses with. Sorry, my English is so bad. So now we're going to multiply -4 with 3c. So again, you can do it mentally. -4 times 3c is basically negative 12z let me again, what we want to do is we want to copy the operation state true, so minus minus, and what we're going to simply do is we're going to multiply negative 4 with 8. Negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. So now let's move on to the next part. And so before we do that, let's do some subtraction rule. So we can shorten this 12z minus negative 32 into 12z plus 32. Now let's focus on the last operation, last distribution. Again, this is the parentheses we want to change, we want to get rid of. And this is the number that multiplies the parentheses with not just 5. The sign includes the sign. It includes the sign, okay? So you're not just going to multiply 5 to C and 4, you have to multiply negative 5 to C and 4. So negative 5 times C is negative 5C, and negative 5 times, so negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. So now what we do is we simply combine all the like terms. Now that we distribute all the distribution property, we simply combine like terms. Find like terms with 8c. So any like terms with 8c? Yes, there is, which is negative 12c and negative 5c. So what you're going to do is you're going to add 8 with negative 12 and negative 5, which is supposed to give you which gives you negative 9. And then you're just going to copy the variable part all three shares, which is c. So our new term is negative 9c. And now we're going to add negative 12. We're going to add 32 with negative 20. 32 plus negative 20 is positive 12. So our new expression is negative 9c plus 12. So that's it for topic 7. Stay tuned for topic 8. Good luck on your test.